Welcome everyone to Ethical Persuasion, the ultimate business skill. I'm really excited to be hosting this keynote webinar tonight because as we all know, the world is changing rapidly, and now with the use with AI and everything that is changing so drastically and so fast, we are going to be facing a lot of changes that are going to affect the way that we run our businesses and that we're able to grow and lead our team and attract more patients and sustain our businesses. So I'm really excited and grateful for the opportunity to have your attention tonight on this subject. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Marissa Duran. I am the CEO and founder of MDent Consulting Services, where we help dentists start and launch their first practice, whether it's startup or an acquisition. I started doing this after having worked in the industry for over 20 years and helping multiple dentists open 15 practices. And since I started MDent, I've been able to successfully help over 500 dentists launch their practices. As a student myself, as I continue to evolve and grow and expand on my knowledge, some of the things that I personally, as a business owner, face is how do I continue to expand my knowledge to better help those? And how do I stay competent and competitive in this changing, evolving market? And this is where I started doing some research and got introduced to the Cialdini Institute. And I'm currently going through the license program to become a trainer, and I am officially a partner. And the material that I'm going to be sharing with you over the next 60 minutes is going to be the 7 principles of ethical persuasion that was founded by the Dr. Robert Cialdini, right? So AI is changing everything. We know that. The labor market is shifting, patients are more skeptical, teams are burned out. And in that environment, our ability to communicate clearly, ethically, and efficiently now is more important than ever, right? So whether you are a practice owner, a treatment coordinator, or a leader in the office, influence is going to be one very powerful tool. So tonight we're going to take the next 60 minutes to go over these things because these persuasion principles are timeless, they're science-backed, and these strategies that I'm going to be sharing with you tonight are being used by the world's top leaders, companies in healthcare, providers everywhere. So I'm going to, and I'm at the end of the meeting, I'm going to give you more resources and tools for you to continue to expand on it. So welcome and thank you for your time tonight. It's a Friday night, and you could have been anywhere and you chose to be here with me. So I'm going to make sure that this is worth your while, okay? So first things first, I want to ask you guys, anyone here is familiar with the World Economic Forum? Let me know in the chat. But for those of you who may not know, according to the World Economic Forum, the same group that actually brings together the world top leaders and in Davos every year, they have conducted and they have released the information of what the top skills that are necessary to develop between now and 2027. So from all of this, the soft skills, at number 4 was influence, right? Influence is another way of persuasion. But however, influence comes in many different forms, as we know. And this is why I'm so excited about today's topic, because we're going to talk about exactly the type of influence that is necessary. How many of us can be influenced by money, right? There are many multiple forms of influence. Money is one of them. Force, violence, or coercion, it's another one, right? Think about the world that we live in. Politics, influence in fear, and all the things that are always influencing our decisions, right? We can be influenced by force, or we can be influenced by money. And sometimes, and ideally, and the subject of matter tonight is, how do we also incorporate ethical persuasion, We know it, we feel it because it's an intangible, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that, right? All these types of influence work in the short term, right? Money is a short-term measure of influence. Force, violence, and coercion, it's short-lived. Think about wars, think about, politics, as I just said. These are short-lived. But ethical persuasion, it's something that it's a long-term benefit. And that's exactly what we want. We want to win long-term influence, right? So a lot of times we are wondering, what are some of the ways in which we can have ethical persuasion? Sometimes by asking ourselves a question, right, of what's going on around us, we can sense and feel the type of influence that is being used on us, or the type of influence that it's being perceived, or that we are as leaders are applying onto others, right? Have you ever thought of the term when people say, when the cats are away, the mice will play? That is the perfect example of the type of influence that we don't want to incorporate. And I'm sorry, we're going to play a game now, right? Because again, we don't want to have coercion as the way that we are being influenced. And we don't want to be influenced by money, bribery, a special, something that brings us into someone's office for the first time and then we don't see them again, right? Like, it happens more often than not in some of our businesses, where I always say to my clients, the first visit is not the most important one. The most important one is going to be the second visit, when they already have agreed that you've met their expectations and now they trust you. But in order to trust them, a lot of times we have incentives, we have new patient specials, we have monetary discounts or something that attract them, but that is an influence that is short-lived. Then what happens in the office, the relationship that you build based on trust with these individuals are the ones that are going to lead to influence them long-term, which is ultimately what we want and what we're seeking to do. I want us to play a game, and Amy, let me know if everyone is able to see this and hear this okay, because I'm going to play a video so that we can see, right, how we are typically influenced. Another form of influence that we are sometimes a product of, and we don't know it. So watch very carefully, and we're going to have a small little discussion on the chat later on.
We set up a hidden camera experiment to see if
are you guys able to hear it okay?
Up at the sound of this tone, simply because everyone else is. You might be thinking you'd never go along with this. Or would you? After just 3 beats, and without knowing why she's doing it, this woman is now conforming perfectly to the group. But what happens if we take the group away?
You guys are seeing, right? Okay, and let's play the other one and see what's happening on the other one.
We set up a hidden camera experiment to see if this one...
Wait.
Elaine, please.
This is a continuation. Oh.
Okay, now she's alone. The crowd is gone, and nobody is watching her, except our hidden cameras. What do you think she'll do?
Surprise, surprise.
Conforming to the rules of the group without them even being there. Now, watch what happens when we introduce another outsider who doesn't know the rules.
Have a seat, and they'll be out in just a couple minutes. Thanks so much.
Think she'll teach the new guy what to do? We kept the cameras rolling as more unsuspecting patients arrived. And slowly but surely, began as a random rule for this woman, has now become the social norm for everyone in this waiting room.
What do you guys think about this? Did you expect her to just follow the beat and get up? And did you notice how when the other person that was not part of the study came in, and just because she was doing it, he started also doing it, and it became a recurrent cycle? This is another form of influence through our society, because sometimes we do things just because it's the way that it's being done, and we don't even question it, right? Now, here's the true thing for us to consider, and why I'm so passionate about learning about this subject and the science and how we react as individuals. A researcher, Daniel Pink, has found that 41% of our time is spent persuading and influencing others, while at the same time, we are also on the receiving end being influenced by a lot of different factors as well. And so wouldn't it make sense for us to understand how our brain works, what the science and studies show, so that we can implement and put into practice some of the strategies that are used based on our neuroscience, and the studies have been conducted for best practices to be able to influence ethically instead of just having coercion or any form of short-lived influence, right? And that is why we're going to talk about ethics, and to lay the foundation on ethical persuasion. It comes down to the fact that we need to figure out, this is an intangible thing that you know, and it feels right when it's done ethically. When you know that you're being influenced over, like, and some of you might have mentioned, I don't want to sound pushy when I'm doing a treatment plan, or sometimes when I can sense when someone needs to fill up a gap on the schedule and they are not genuinely doing the treatment that it's necessary or that I want, we're not meeting each other in the middle. It's something that it's felt, it's an intangible. And that's why it's so important that that we learn about how we behave and how to create strategies around that would work for you, not against you, right? So let me ask you, and this is something that I want you to either jot it down or to just in your mind, because I know that there are going to be situations in your offices, in your business. Think about, how is persuasion important to you? I want you to think of a time or everyday examples in the workplace, and take a few moments just to think about how persuasion can help you improve your practice in any area. It could be a patient that you have coming up on the schedule that has a large treatment plan. It may be an employee or someone within the practice that you want to find a way to put together a more ethical persuasion tactic in place, because I'm going to start sharing with you the principles so that you can link to see what it's missing from that conversation and start working towards your game plan. Okay. Do you guys have something, at least one item that you can think of that you're going to address? Beautiful. Okay. So now that we have anchored and we have identified at least one scenario or one incident in our practices, in our businesses that we want to focus on, to apply the strategies that we're going to be learning today, let's get started. And I want you to share with you something that I did earlier today so you can see the power of this, because at the end of the day, we are heading somewhere. The question is going to be, are we getting there by default or are we getting there by design? One of the things that basically what I want for me and for all of you is to get to where we are heading in our businesses, in our households, in our lives by design, not by default. I don't want any of us to be like the person that is just in the waiting room and a sound goes off, and just because someone else gets up, then they get up. And then you have that programming and then you pass it on to other people. That's basically by default. And what we want is we want to manage and run our businesses and influence others, persuade others by design, by understanding their motives, by understanding what principles are in play and tapping into them effectively. This is a video that I created. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but I did it using AI. This is a video that I shot in a play that I stayed in the Dominican Republic while I was on vacation. And I started playing around with AI and cloned myself and did a text edit of what you're about to hear. And this is not me saying it live. This is my avatar through AI. Just so you can see the power of technology, automations, and all of the things that are happening that a lot of people are going to start using AI and using technology to put the principles in place to have videos that are going to be influential in the world. And if you're not tapping into these things, right, and you're just relying on your own experience, and if you don't know what to look for, what principles to incorporate as you are even creating content, this is just one example of how things are changing and evolving, and how now is the time for us to get into the new trend, but do it with, ethically. So let me see if I can play this thing.
That AI is going to take their job. But what if I told you it's not AI that's the threat? It's something else entirely. Across the US, over 2.5% of jobs are at risk of automation, especially in fields where tasks can be replicated by generative AI. But here's the twist. Studies show that human communication, how we lead, influence, and persuade, is becoming more valuable, not less. That means your ability to ethically guide patients, lead your team, and earn trust. It's your biggest protection and your power move in this AI-driven economy.
So you see the power of AI, right? It took me maybe 30 minutes to do this video. I took an old video of mine, put the text in, and it generated my voice and everything. So we're all on a path, and the difference is the path that we're going to choose, if it's intentionally or if it's shaped by habit, by fear, or by other people's expectations, right? If we don't design our future, our default is going to be the way that it's going to go, right? But when we lead with purpose and we lean into influence with integrity, we are going to be the ones that are going to make a lot of progress. So now I want to introduce you to Dr. Cialdini and who he is, right? Dr. Cialdini, and I want to not take, because there's so much information to share up front, that I want to get to the meat and the main course, which is the 7 principles. Dr. Cialdini is the godfather of influence. He's actually a behavioral scientist, researcher, and he's the bestseller author of Influence, which has sold millions of copies worldwide. And his work basically is considered kind of like the gold standard in understanding how people say yes and how to use that power with actual integrity, right? So he has written a lot of books, from, the psychology of persuasion. He spends hours undercover, right, in sales and marketing environments to study firsthand how influence really works in the real world, not just in theories. And the result of his research was a timeless research-backed framework for ethical persuasion, which is what we're going to cover today. Just, to give you some additional reference of whose work we're going to be studying today, he has worked for like trusted 500 Fortune companies, the White House, even healthcare systems around the world, right? When people like Mark Cuban, Warren Buffett, Elon Musk, and Jeff Bezos have organically been asked about, hey, what has been a book that has influenced you, that has helped you in your career, in your businesses, a lot of them usually recommend and say that influence has been, and the work of Dr. Cialdini has definitely been the work that they recommend and that they have followed and has helped them. So again, lots of information. It's going to be like I'm opening up a fire hose. So let's dive in and start working on the 7 principles. The 7 universal principles of persuasion are, and you can take note, the first one is reciprocity. The second principle is liking. The third principle is unity. The fourth is social proof. Authority, it's number 5, and in no order in particular. Consistency is principle number 6 of persuasion. And the last one is scarcity, right? So these are the 7 principles of persuasion or influence that we're going to go over tonight. Now, because our time is limited, I'm going to share an overview of what the principle is, and I'm going to share with you some insights and studies and some actionable tips for you to apply them right away, right? So, and before we dive in, I'm just going to cover like 3 critical insights for you to understand and to know about. The first critical insight is that every conversation you're in, right, whether it's with a team member, with a patient, with a partner, has one of these 7 principles at play. The difference between the average leader and the great leaders is that you know and that you're able to identify them and put them into practice. The second critical insight is that that influence isn't just about being slick or being manipulative, right? It's not basically reserved for the extroverts or the sales pro people. This is something that it's a skill that could be learned, right? Because it is based on science. So this is not something that it's only reserved for a handful of people. The third and final critical insight that I wanted to share with you is that there are dozens of applications, from marketing to hiring to patient care, but I'm not going to overwhelm you. For each of the different applications, I'm going to share one application that you can apply immediately, and then we can just continue the conversation. I'm going to share with you some other ways for you to gain access to more information, like more material specifically from Dr. Cialdini's website that you can tap into and take advantage of, okay? Because it's going to be a lot of information. Now, let's talk about our first principle, which is reciprocity. Let me ask you this question. And this is something that I always feel this way. When you get a gift from someone that you don't expect a gift, do you feel sometimes compromise into doing something for that person? Raise your hand if this is true for you, right? It is something that we cannot control. The reciprocity defined, this is what it says, the principle, Dr. Cialdini's principle. People feel obligated to give something back when you have given them something first, okay? So what's really happening here is that when you give something to someone, you create social debt. So somebody, if you give them something, you're creating debt with them. And as humans, we are wired for balance. We cannot have someone give us too much without us giving something back, because we are not in balance. So the first tip that I'm going to share with you tonight is to think about ways in which you are using reciprocity within your practice. For example, I'm going to give you the perfect example. I came down to a client's office a couple of months ago, and she was getting started, and we were going over like what every doctor dental office does nowadays. And you probably notice this, it's the goodie bag with like the toothbrush and all these things. When you're giving someone a gift that you're giving the same gift to someone else, it's no longer a gift. It is something that becomes expected. So it has become the norm or the expected for whenever we go to a dentist to get our goodie bag with our new toothbrush, our new floss, and whatever else you guys throw into that little bag. So what we want to do in our businesses is, for those patients, we want to give them something that is going to be unique to them. And the way that I apply this for my client's office in this particular office was, we knew that this dentist was, this patient was about to get married. And I just said, let's identify one thing that we can do for him that it's different, that you're not doing for someone else. And you can just identify one person a day that is going to be your ambassador, that you're going to do something the extra mile outside of the norm. Because remember, what you give to everyone else the same becomes kind of like the standard. You're not doing anything special because you're not going out of your way to give something. So we wanted to increase number of reviews. And I said, okay, how many reviews do we need to collect per day? This many reviews based on the number of patients. Let's identify this individual as part of our huddle. We identify the individual. Next thing you know, we found out, and this is how, and I'm using this example of this situation in this office so that you can see how certain situations, all of these principles are going to be piling up and becoming like stacking one thing over the other, using one particular office and one particular scenario. The way that we used the reciprocity was, we gave them a gift that was in addition to the standard goodie bag that they would get every 6 months. We gave them a special whitening kit because we knew that he was going to get married. So the doctor went in and said, hey, you are going to be taking pictures. This is going to be an important milestone in your life. I want to give something special to you. Here is my gift to you. Take pictures. Show me when you come back in 6 months. What are we doing? We're building a lot of different of those principles with this one patient. On the way out, we printed our QR code, made sure that we had it handy, and said, hey, Tom, would you be so kind to leaving us a review? What do you think he said? He was in social debt with us because we had given him something first. And as a return, he went ahead immediately and gave us a great review. This is an example of reciprocity, okay? Take notes. Now, sometimes, what if we say no? Part of reciprocity, a lot of times we get thrown back when someone says no to us, and that's also a reality of it, right? What I want you to know, and based on the teachings of Dr. Cialdini, that if we hear the word no, it's actually opening the door for an opportunity. We can turn it into a yes. And let's go over how this happens. I'm going to share with you a study, like a marketing study, where they took, where two groups of people were doing a survey. The first group of people basically started to ask people to take a survey for 15 minutes. It was a 15-minute survey. A lot of people said no to this survey. Then they said, hey, the other group of people asked the individuals to take the survey, would you be willing to take a 16-minute survey? And people said no. Then they said, how about a 15-minute survey? And here are going to be the results, right? When they only asked for 15 minutes, I think 25% of people said yes. But when you ask them for 60 minutes and they said no, but then you follow with a concession, which is another option, about 44% said yes, right? So we went from 25% to 44, and it means that it was an 80% improvement in the results. What does that mean? It means that we need to have a backup plan. So when they say no, we need to give them concessions. And then a concession is, you know that they said no to this, but will they say yes to that? And the studies show that a no can be turned into a yes. You just have to frame it a certain way, right? So think about how you can do this in the office with the treatment plan when offering appointments to your patients and so on. Because what Dr. Cialdini says is that if you retreat from the moment, you lose. But if you retreat in the moment, you win. And that's what we want to do, right? Dr. Cialdini calls this reciprocity concessions. And sluts are always prepared for a fallback position. And this is going to be true for us in our offices as we are putting together treatment plans. Now, we are also in our offices trained to just, hey, this is the treatment plan. This is what we recommend. And, you know, if the patient says no, then off they go, and we never really hear back from them for whatever reason. What our recommendation is that you have a fallback position. So a patient, the ideal treatment plan could be an implant, but you know that there is a lower level or another way or another type of service that could be offered as an alternative. So you want to be able to say, if they say no for what the cost, the time, whatever it is, get concession to say, but you can also get a crown, or you can also get the whatever other alternative options for that treatment plan is, right? Like it could be a composite, or it could be an onlay or an inlay. You just want to be giving people options, right? Now, how many options do you present? That's another question. You do not want to give too many people too many options. Ideally, you want to give 2 to 3 options. So you can do this, and if this doesn't work with your budget or the time, then the other less, lasting procedure, right? Because we anchor the patients onto the best ultimate health. But we understand that there are also other alternatives, because someone can get an implant or they can get a flipper, right? It's a matter of income. It's a matter of objections, but you build more trust when you offer more options. And what I want us to do is to be mindful of how many options do we give them. Usually you want to give no more than 3 options for the treatment, right? So that's going to be an important aspect. I think there are more people in the waiting room. Amy, if you can just admit them, please. We have people in the waiting room. Awesome. My apologies. Are you guys learning something? Let me know if we're good for time. Awesome. Great. So beautiful. This is you. Okay. A lot. Thank you. Thank you for the feedback. Awesome. So let's talk about how the channels that we're using when we're trying to influence and we want to persuade patients. And I'm going to share with you like a reason how technology, and I shared this earlier with you guys about the AI and automations and all of the things that are happening, right? When we talk about how we deliver on a case presentation, on everything, is going to be how you give the information matters as much as what you give. So if you're presenting treatment options or offering help or thanking someone for their time, the channels you use can either amplify or dilute the impact of your persuasion, right? And in persuasion, not all channels are created equal, right? So for example, a voice message feels warmer than an email. A short video is going to be, response after a no builds more trust than a generic text message or an email confirmation. So you have to identify the channel that is going to be most appropriate based on what you're looking to deliver. I have a doctor that recently opened the practice, and one of the things that I said, hey doc, as much as we have these automations that make it so easy for our lives, you're a startup. You have the time, your team has the time to get on the phone and be and show gratitude and excitement for every person that attempts to schedule your appointment, right? Why? Because and this is the as a result of a no-show. Hey, Maritz, I started using ZocDoc, which it's expensive as it is to bring in these patients, and the patients are, you know, booking online, and it's all great. But if they're not showing, I asked, did you take the time to reach out to the patient personally to say thank you, to see how they're feeling after a visit? So let's talk about all the different channels, because let's be real. We are being bombarded with information and with marketing and resources and tools everywhere. And we become numb based on the volume of all these things. So what are some of the methods of communication that we use? We use email, right? What's another one? You guys let me know in the chat. I want to make sure you guys are staying active. Let me know what are some of the channels that you use. Let's see. Someone says text a lot. Okay. Amy saying text. iPhone is saying text. Okay, great. So these are all ways of communication for sure. But which do you think is the most effective one? Call. That's great. Awesome. So we have video calls. We have face-to-face, we have SMS, we've mentioned that, we have phone call. I will tell you that the face-to-face is going to always be the most effective one. So when you have the patients within proximity to you, this is when you are able to implement a lot of the different influence tools and persuasion principles that I'm sharing with you today, right? So it goes in this order. I do not want you to send an email if you have the ability to get on the phone with the person. If you have the flexibility of scheduling a virtual call, even better. SMS is something that we're becoming so numb to. So as much as you are tempted to, as a startup, because you're busy and so on and so forth, when you are looking to increase your potential of getting a yes from someone, figure out what's the best channel for you to communicate with this individual and use that channel instead of just, hey, let me send them a text message to confirm the appointment. We need to be intentional, right? Especially when you want to help the patients and you want to grow your business. So this is really extremely important. So I told you this is going to be a lot of information. So for those of you who are joining me, so some power tips for the first principle, reciprocity. Always have a fallback position prepared. What kind of treatment is recommended and what are some of the options that you can give the patient? This is my recommendation, but other patients have benefited from this. Just be aware of the timeline and how long, like, you know, the quality of, I'm sorry, what is the word that I'm looking for? Please help me. What is going to be kind of like the last lasting in terms of the how long it lasts, right? Like, yeah, we know that a crown gets damaged to the tooth, and implant is going to be the one that stays the longest, and then, you know, all these other components and the money, the monetary component to it, right? So have a fallback, preferably 2 options, 3 in total, so 3 options for the patients. And when you are presenting your treatment plan or your options, which is the more persuasive channel that you can use from the options that we just covered? So this wraps up the first principle. Let's talk about the second principle. And this is kind of like piling up, right? We think about liking as something that seems simple, but it has a large effect on how we persuade people. And this is basically because according to, and we can all identify this, right? Others say yes to us more when we know that they genuinely like us. And how do we then build likeness with people that we don't have a relationship with, right? This is something that we understand, that if we are just meeting our patients, we're building a relationship with them, that they don't know us and we don't know them. We need to find things that we have alike. Liking leads to, yes, What are some of the things that we can do in our businesses for this? You need to get before you talk business, you need to find at least one thing in common with that person. It could be their birthday. Always have someone in your team getting involved into finding some similarities of what it is that you and that person have in common. So things that I typically like to do, and this is what I recommend, is look at your registration forms. If your registration forms only are limited to their demographic information and the things that they, their medical history, their dental history, and things of that nature, you're not really going to build likeness with these individuals. What about, like, what kind of books do you like to read? Or, movies you like to watch? Or there are certain ways in which you can find common ground that you can then tap into this likeness to have things in common to go off and build rapport from. Because if they like you and they feel like you're like them, then they're going to do business with you and refer their family and friends to you, which is ultimately what we want. So your homework is to go above and beyond to find out more information about them. Sometimes I have a list of things that you can do: birthdays, where they went to school, sometimes the background. All of these things make it so that you can have conversations that they enjoy and they feel like, oh, the person is like me and they like me. And because they like you, you have reciprocity with them. They're more leaning towards saying yes. And I'm going to share with you the study behind this here. This is a balloon pilot, study that was conducted. I forgot in what country this was, but basically, just because we're going to be, I want to go through the thing and it's a lot of information. There was a study where conducted in McDonald's, right? And parents would come into the McDonald's to pretty much just purchase their Happy Meals for their children. And what this employee began to realize was, she would give the kids a balloon after the visit, after they picked up the Happy Meal, and the parents will go off, because parents don't consume McDonald's, but the children do. I'm sorry, I think I skipped the thing. Anyhow, just to wrap up on this thing so that you can get perspective from the studies that take place to support the side, to back up the principles. When they actually switched and gave the balloon to the children up front, they started to notice a 25% increase. The parents would come in and buy the Happy Meal, and in addition to that, get themselves a coffee, get themselves something else when they would consume. Their sales grew from those encounters. I think I forgot the numbers there, by 25% or so. So what that means is they changed from giving the gift after the visit, they gave something before the visit, and then they consume more because they felt more, the parents felt obligated because they liked their children were happy, and so on and so forth. So they came in, and instead of just purchasing the Happy Meal, they purchased something extra and gave more business to the business. Just that one balloon and changing from giving it at the end to giving it to the front made a significant difference in sales, right? So before you do business, build rapport. We like others who are like us. So find similarities. This is the liking principle. Examples of similarities, where hometown, place of work, educational background, favorite hobbies, sports, travel experiences, language that they speak, music preferences, volunteer work, family structure, love for animals, right? Like, who doesn't like to talk about their pet? These are all things that you can begin to build rapport and finding liking and similarities so that you can earn their trust before you ask them for business. You are going to increase your chances of yeses. Oh my goodness, we're only down to the 2. Are you guys okay for time? This is where I struggle, meeting my 1 hour deadline, but we started 10 minutes late, so we are okay, right? Give me a thumbs up in the chat if you guys are good and feel like this is valuable. Power tip for the second principle: do your homework before meeting and identify those similarities, right? When meeting with someone, spend 10 to 15 minutes discussing those similarities before jumping into business. And I don't want you to come to work tomorrow or Monday thinking that this is like that it must, I want it to become natural and part of something that you feel like doing it, because remember, ethical persuasion is an intangible that people feel when it's being forced upon us or not. Okay, so make it end. When revisiting treatment plan, always go back to the last visit. It's all about connecting, not just communicating. This is what you need. This is what we're recommending, and so on. Principle number 3, and it's just continuing to just get more intensive and more intensive. Unity. Unity defined. What does it say? That people are inclined to say yes to someone they consider one of them. So our ethnic background, so many factors, right, are help us in situations, because when we blur out boundaries between self and others, we become we, right? Think about collective, situations in politics. We are this, or we are Democrats, or we are unity. Like when you find, and people commit crazy things in the name of, hey, they're one of mine, so I need to go to war with them because we are following the same, we're united by an ideology, whatever it is. So finding that common ground with kind of like with integrity, it's something that would help you. So a lot of times, religious groups and all of these things, when we feel like culturally speaking, we are more inclined to working with others that we feel like, hey, we are involved. And with our teams, right? With our teams, a lot of times it's not as easy because we come from multiple different backgrounds and so on and so forth. So when we harness the power of when we don't have a relationship with people, we co-create in order for us to build that we-ness, right? So basically, in the absence of unity, when you don't have things in common with the individual, you can co-create to be able to find that common ground. So let me give you an example of how this works. A lot of times, and this is something that it's very true when we're working with our team members. Sometimes I will reach out to my team member and I will say, I need to consult something with you, right? I want to ask you for advice. So when we speak to our team members and we say, I want to ask for your advice, not with your opinion. When we ask for an opinion, we get criticism. But when we ask for advice on a matter, on a subject, we are going to be working as partners. And so unity, when we are looking for unity with our patients, with our team, then those are some of those things that gives us that foundation and that common purpose, because they're one of us. We are one of them, right? Not only do we have reciprocity, we like each other, but now we're one of the same. We're from the same group. We share the same backgrounds. We share the same, values. We are one of each other. Now, when in the absence of that, we basically co-create in situations in order to create that unity. Does that make sense? There are some more other examples and things that I'm going to be sharing with you later on. So, power tips for this principle. Blur the boundaries between self and others. So always use we and find the common ground between you and those individuals, and find ways to co-creating with colleagues and client, right? Ask for advice instead of asking for an opinion. That way you can get more buy-in from everyone. Okay, moving on to, we have like 3 more to go. Okay, so we're almost there, almost the home stretch. The 4th principle, social proof. This is a huge one nowadays because we are always looking for what other people are doing, right? People look to what others are doing to decide what they should do, especially when they are uncertain, and when others are like them. So think about this for a second. If I am like Daisy, and Daisy is going into this dental office, and I've never been to this office, but she has a great, following, and I look up to her. I see that she likes this place. Guess what? I am like her. She's like me. And when I'm uncertain, I have so many options, I'm going to follow and see and do what Daisy's doing, right? So this is the idea behind it. When we don't know what to do, we basically look for what others are doing. And again, because I need to show you the examples here of social proof, this is another study that was conducted, and in this case, it was with the McFlurry in McDonald's, right? So this was a Steve Martin, a behavioral science expert who worked with McDonald's. They wanted to boost dessert sales and do upsells at the register. So the team would ask which dessert, they asked the team which dessert is already doing well. And they say, well, the McFlurry. It was already like their top seller. So what they did was, for this social proof, that instead of creating a new dessert and then or pushing for discounts, they just basically made it more visible. And what they did is they basically told people that, hey, this is one dessert that other people are getting. So in other words, the sales jumped by 55% because they started to show it, social proof, and the front desk, the register person simply told the individuals that, hey, other people typically like to get a McFlurry with this. You've probably been to McDonald's and they tell you this. And then you're like, okay, so just get me that McFlurry. So those are the ways in which they do it. They already make it visible and they let you know who else is doing it, that other people are also buying it. So the sales jump by 55%. Think about ways in which you can incorporate this. Now, social proof also in our offices. This is the office of Dr. Phelps, who is my mentor, and he's the CEO of the Cialdini Institute here in the US. And one of the things that I tell my clients all the time, you have to have and show social proof in your practice. This picture here shows multiple layers. It shows likeness, because you see here we have, Einstein, and we have all these other things that he enjoys. We have his accolades, top doctor, social proof, and authority, which is another principle that we're going to go through. And social proof from other cases from other patients and the things that they do, right? Like their before and after pictures. All of these things help you. So whenever possible, make sure that for the power tip on social proof, do your homework and find out what most people are choosing, whether it's your competitor. That's part of what we do. Let me just make sure that I charge my tablet here for a second, because I see it getting a little blurry. We're only 2 things away, 1 hour in since I started. Perfect. 9:01. So power tip for your for the social proof. Do your homework and find out. If you need to do competitive research, do that. It doesn't matter. Inform others about popular choices. So if patients are typically doing, veneers in your office, take those pictures. And when you're doing your case presentations, take before and after pictures and say, hey, a lot of our patients are doing this, and this is what the doctor is recommending. This is an option for you to consider. They are going to be anchored and see, hey, if this person did it, that person sort of looks like me. We have the same affluency and background and so on and so forth. Why not, right? Like if others are doing it, I can do it too. Really important. Okay. And knowing social proof also works for upsells, right? Like, because if you are recommending a bonding at the front, but you can show them a picture of what a actual veneer looks like, of a finished case with a testimonial as part of your case presentation, throw in some social proof into your case presentations, right? then that person is going to be more inclined in saying yes, because they're going to think, hey, that person that looks similar to me, similar background, we are alike, right? They are doing it, so therefore I can manage it and try to do it myself too. Okay, moving on to number 5. Let's talk about authority. I think I shared with you guys just recently the picture of Dr. Phelps' office and how authority is so super important. Authority defined says that we rely on those with superior knowledge and wisdom. Let me repeat that. We rely on those with superior knowledge or wisdom. And it's not necessarily that they have it, is that we perceive them as having such, right? There are great marketers with very poor substance of what they do. I can tell you this, but whomever we perceive to be knowledgeable, we basically follow them as well. That's how we get influenced, by people that we perceive have authority. This is the study that was conducted, and this is going to be a powerful one because I apply this also in the office that I came down to last. This is an example of how a real estate agency increased signed contracts by 15%. Let me show you what happened. So basically, the way that the person, whenever they called and to speak to the broker or the person in charge, they will say, hey, let me just transfer you. And one of the things that they changed that accounted for that 15% increase was that when the person called, they started to introduce the other person with some authority. So the way that I applied this in the office was the doctor acquired a practice. She was new to the location. There were some hygienists and people that had been there a long time. The homework that I gave my team at this office is I want everyone to introduce everyone as the patients are coming in. So the workflow, the front desk receives the phone call, patient is scheduling. This is a doctor that you're going to see, and she's great. Have you visited our website? She's an expert in whatever it is that the patient is looking to get done. I'm looking forward to you meeting her and getting work from her because you're going to be really happy with the results. Patient comes in, dental assistant is going to come in. Hey, let me introduce you to Kathy. Kathy has been someone that our patients always report how gentle and caring she is. She's going to be taking your x-rays now before the doctor sees you. Then Kathy takes the x-rays on the patient. She's then introducing the patient to the hygienist. Hey, let me introduce you to Stephanie. She's our hygienist. She's been in the industry for over 20 years. And she's been with the company for this long. You're going to really enjoy, our patients really enjoy or really appreciate how thorough she is with the cleanings. So you see how everyone just throws a little cell or authority blur for someone else as they get introduced. This is how I would like you to apply this authority thing onto your office. Because by the time that patient is sitting on your chair, they are not going to be questioning the dental assistant and their ability to do this. Because remember, we perceive others as authority. But if we are told by someone that we already perceived as an authority that the next person that they're seeing is an authority, we're going to be removing a lot of the objections from our heads that are typically happening. So this is the power of introductions. This is basically a full brain activity. So whenever someone is just going about their businesses and you tell them, hey, so have a sit here, let me take your x-rays, let me do this or let me do that, they're going to be busy, distracted with doing so many things. But when you are told, let me tell you about this person who is an expert at X, Y, and Z, your mind stops slowing down because now you're not thinking for yourself. You stop thinking for yourself, and that overload of information is more digestible. So you're doing a benefit to the patients because you're removing a lot of the noise that is out there, and you are getting closer to getting those yeses, and you're enhancing the perceived value of everyone in your practice. The person that is the last dental assistant that came in, patients don't know that they don't have the experience. If you're promoting them and they are caring for the patients, people are going to build trust, which is ultimately what we want before we ask people to do business with us, right? So authority, the power tips that I want you to apply when you come back to the office on Monday. Make sure you are introduced by someone else, okay? Number 2, make sure you introduce others. And one last thing that I will tell you about authority is for my female doctors. I would love, and this is one of the things, like we have the tendency of matching what our team is doing and so on and so forth. So, you know, like everyone wears black scrubs, everyone is in black scrubs. You are the doctor, you need to differentiate yourself from your other team because you are the ultimate authority within your practice. So throw on a lab coat or anything to make sure that you're distinguishing yourself from the other, you know, colleagues and so on and so forth, because there has been situations in which a patient walks in, a lot of these older, you know, patients walk in and they're like, are you the doctor? They aim for the male that is like, what have you. And the doctor is like a young woman and so on and so forth. And again, just because we are hardwired to thinking someone in a white coat is the authority, right? So we want to start breaking those things. And these are just like a little hack for all of us, you know, female doctors and, you know, in professionals. Create a sense of separateness, okay, from your team. Stand out a little bit. You need to, you deserve it, okay? Number 6, consistency. What this principle says is that once a person makes a choice or a stand, they behave in ways that are true to that position. So what you want is, and this is where we make the mistake in our practices, to just make statements all the time instead of asking questions. So what we want is we want a commitment, right? So consistency is when people take a stand or commit. There's a lot of internal and external pressure on them to stay consistent with the commitment they made and follow through with it. So to give you an example, and this is kind of like the study that we shared. What happens in a dental practice that I've seen is that when we ask people, or when we're confirming an appointment, we say, hey, Mrs. Smith, I'm just calling to confirm your appointment with Dr. Johnson tomorrow at 3 p.m. So you are confirmed for tomorrow at 3 p.m. We'll see you then. That is not a confirmation. That is just stating or saying a statement, right? And what we want is we want an active yes that they say publicly and they say voluntarily. So instead of saying you have an appointment for tomorrow at 3 p.m., what you want to do is you want to ask and get an active yes from them, a confirmation yes. How do you do that? You just basically, instead of saying, and this is a study that I'm not going to have time to share with you, but basically in this study, there was like a restaurant that was having a lot of turnover and cancellations, and they changed, instead of saying it as a statement, would you be coming tomorrow at this time? Instead of saying it, you are confirmed for tomorrow at this time, they said, will you be here at such and such time tomorrow at 3 p.m.? Will you come at 3 p.m. tomorrow? If they gave you an active yes, mentally and morally, they're more committing to saying, to coming in, and or letting you know ahead of time because they've made a commitment. So basically this consistency principle says that once a person says something, they live up to that. So if they get you that active yes, they're going to be more inclining and more morally committed to staying consistent to what they initially said. Does that make sense? Okay. And here we are at a wrap. Okay. The power tip for consistency. Do your homework and script the right series of questions, because you want to be able to know if you're confirming your visit, if you're going over the treatment plan. Ask for a commitment of instead of taking the commitment, right? That's how you do it. And get an active yes. That's how you get it done. Okay. So Final and last principle of tonight, scarcity. This is going to be a huge one, especially now, because we are in a place where there are a lot of noise and a lot of people asking our patients to do many things, and we want to be able to get the business and get the work that they need done. So scarcity defined means that our brains work in ways in which things appear more valuable when there are less available. So what does that mean? That when we have, scarcity is the idea that when we're naturally drawn to limited, exclusive, or things that are about to disappear, because it taps into the fear of missing out. And so this is what people call, like psychologists call this loss aversion, right? So think about how we react when someone says last seats left, or like offer ends tonight, or only 2 appointments left of the week. What scarcity does is it creates urgency, and it shifts the decision-making energy from like maybe later or someday to like right now. So using scarcity, like ethically and effectively, it becomes like really important for you to know that we're not manufacturing like false urgency, if you will, right? So we're basically want to highlight real limitations that people will help people act before they miss out on something that is valuable. So when it comes to your treatment plan, hey, it's not going to be the scarcity of like you're not going to be there in 2 years to get it done, but instead, hey, right now, this is based on this treatment plan. This is the monetary cost to it. And the loss aversion that they're going to receive, it's going to cost them more money. It's going to be more time. It's going to be more discomfort. And things that are more true to them is where the scarcity, where you anchor them, right? Because, and you can say, hey, it could be your benefits. It could be the doctor only has these times available, and this is going to turn into something more major. And when you have an emergency, we may need to refer you out. There are certain ways in which you can make scarcity something to work in your office, but you have to be mindful of how to do it. Okay. So this is, let me see. This was a study on scarcity that I think Dr. Cialdini worked on this, but I'm not going to go through it because this is the pizza story. Let me see. Okay, so this is an interesting one because in this study, basically they offer all of the different things for the toppings, and they went through the pricing and said, okay, our pizza that has everything, it's gonna cost $16 for with all the veggies. But then the person basically gets to remove some of the things from it instead of adding the different toppings. So you would say, like most of our people typically get this full pizza. What are some of the toppings that you would like to remove? So their sales went from on average of $14 to $16. Some of the things that you can use as a tip strategy when you're doing your presentations or your case presentations. Power tips on scarcity, which is our last principle of tonight, is to inform people of what they stand to lose rather than what they gain, right? You're going to lose your health. A lot of the services that we provide for our patients can have other side effects to their overall health, especially if they're medically compromised. So tapping into those things can help us. Structure your offer so that others remove the add-ons instead of you. So this is the study of the pizza that you can say, this is all the things that I recommend, but you can remove this or remove that from the services, and or work with them on the structuring the visits, negotiating with them. Like I would recommend that we start working on these procedures if it's an extensive treatment plan, but which one do you want to focus on first, right? And so on and so forth, to negotiate and structure the offer so that they can have some input, because people want to create that co-creation that we spoke about when we were talking about unity, how we want to work together. It doesn't only apply to our employees, also with our patients. As we are making up their treatment plans, they need to have buy-in and input into the decisions that they're making. So you co-create a plan with them, and you give the choices, give them the options, let them remove, and work with you on something that works for both of you, if that makes sense. Now, so you guys like the introduction to the principles here? Let me know in the chat. Great. So if you like the information that I was sharing here, is my camera off? I didn't know that my camera was off. How did I even turn it off? Anyways, I thought I was seeing myself. Anywho, okay. So I really encourage you guys to continue learning. So one of the things that we can do is I'm going to share 3 steps. So you can take out your phones and let me see if this works. Number 1, see, I don't even have the slide ready, but I want to get you a certificate. So I don't have this thing here. I didn't generate it, but for those of you who showed up tonight and spend this time with me, I'm going to send you a certificate of completion of 1 hour and maybe 10 minutes we went over of ethical persuasion tonight with me. So that's something that, Amy, you're going to hold me accountable for following through starting next week. The second thing that we can do together is, where is the next slide? Something is going on. Oops. Here, there is a course that you can take that it's free of charge. It's a free persuasion power course from the Cialdini Institute that I have. I'm able to provide. It has like 5 modules, and it gives into more information and more examples. And so that's also something that you can take. And the last one is that I want to share with you is to just put into practice the things that you've learned today, right? I'm going to send you, Dr. Cialdini has like and you can join them virtually or in person, but it's sometime early next month. And I think traveling to Arizona, it's a lot of work, but there are going to be 2 days in person, but you can purchase the tickets also if you want to continue learning more with Dr. Cialdini and Dr. Phelps himself. I am going to send you on the recap email that we're going to send on Monday. I'm going to send you kind of like the flyer so that you can look into it. And if you need to still take CE courses before the end of the year, you can join them virtually, but spend 2 days really taking notes and applying these principles. It's over like a Friday, Saturday. So perfect timing for you to just get prepared for like 2026. Personally, I am going to be, for my clients and anyone that joins any of my programs, I'm going to be applying some of the things that I'm learning and taking them in through the process of like reviewing the registration forms, co-creating the presentation, that they do, how they do it, to apply some of these things, conduct a survey of what's happening in the office in terms of, are you showing testimonials and reviews and things like that laying around in the office, before and after pictures. So all of these things I'm going to be working very closely to applying my knowledge and building it together. So I'm looking forward to doing that. So start learning, right? That's kind of like what I want us to do, right? So again, my name is Maritza, and I've walked you through the 7 principles of persuasion. We explore real life stories and uncover a lot of the, how the communication can lead to massive impacts. But this is, if you guys have any questions, you can definitely ask me now, so that we can stay connected and things of that nature. Does anybody have any questions before I wrap up on my last slide? I know we've been over. Hold on. This was a great presentation. Thank you. Great. Did you learn something, Daisy? Ready to apply some things in the office on Monday? You can unmute yourself or write it in the chat. Okay. Yes, perfect. Now, to wrap up, I just want to say, that the most powerful leaders are not the ones that speak the loudest. They're not the ones who move others. They are the ones that move others with integrity, right? And what you've learned tonight is it's not just a strategy, it's a responsibility, right? Because ethical persuasion is not about getting things our way. It's about helping others see what's truly there in their best interest, right? And in a world of noise, skepticism, and automation, our ability to lead with clarity, with confidence, and ethics is going to be what sets us apart. So I want this to be the starting point. So I want you to keep learning. I want you to keep leading, and truly hope to see you in your continued journey. So maybe even, you know, at one of the Dr. Cialdini's events. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for choosing showing up tonight and choosing to lead with influence and with purpose. Thank you so much. And I want to make sure that you support me in continuing to develop our persuasion skills together. So Funky is asking, how do you try to remember your patients to maintain the connection? I forget faces easily. I struggle with the same thing. So you need to work with your team on making sure that even on the notes and certain things that you are following some form of personal notes on that patient to remind you, like some triggers, just like taking notes here and there. And also ask the team, they have conversations with them, they can put you up to speed as to, hey, this person just moved in, or this person is moving out, or they went to this school or that. Registration forms are just more than a means of collecting their data and plugging it into your software. You can use it for a lot more than that. And that's just the beginning of mining. Like, think about how we are constantly being mined by Google, by ChatGPT. Everything that we do and we say online, it's being used to sell to us onto something, right? Let's just make sure that we go back and we use some of the tactics that these big companies are using and implement them ourselves in our businesses to really go there. I can definitely, Dr. Funky, relate with you. But yeah, that's kind of like one of the things. Like, I asked my team, tell me a little bit more about this person, do some research, your homework before you show up, find the likeness, find the common ground, because you want to build trust and rapport with them before, you know, so that they can say more yeses to you. Hopefully that answers the question. Thank you. Beautiful. So everyone, thank you so much again for joining me tonight. Looking forward to staying in touch with you. You could have been anywhere else and you're here, so I really appreciate you. Thank you and have a blessed and amazing weekend. Bye now.